In today's video, you'll learn about employee resource groups or ERGs, what they are, and best practices from ERG leaders. We explore how they're started, benefits of joining, and successful examples of these groups. Let's make a social impact. Hi everyone, I'm Carl. Welcome to the Social Impact Show, where CSR professionals get the latest strategies and tips to help them scale and grow their CSR and goodness programs. So today I've got 4 special guests from Thermo Fisher. So my first guest, her name is Mimi Liu. She's the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. I've also got Patricia Hookman, who is the Global Lead Possibilities BRG Senior IP Litigation Paralegal. We've got Kevin Robinson, who is the African Heritage BRG Co-Lead, Vaccines Quality Assurance Auditor 1. And finally, but definitely not least, Lee Pullen, who is a PhD, Global Lead Women's Empowerment BRG, Senior Manager, Application Scientist. Thank you very much all for joining me today. So before we get into the conversation around employee resource groups, maybe you can all tell me a little bit more about Thermo Fisher.
Sure, I'll start here. Thanks again for having us. Thermo Fisher Scientific is excited to be a part of your show. We are the world leader in serving science with a mission to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. We've got over 100,000 colleagues worldwide, and every day I get to work with those phenomenal individuals. But I don't know a whole lot about the business. I'll turn it to my colleagues who are actually doing the work on the ground. So Lee, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Mimi. Hi, I'm Lee Pullen. My day job is to work with our application scientists within our electron microscopy business. So we make very large microscopes to look at really small things. I have an amazing team here, and I'm based in Hillsboro, Oregon. In my day job, I'm the global lead for the Women's Empowerment BRG, and it is my responsibility to help foster an environment where women have a place and are developed, retained, empowered, and encouraged to speak up and promoted globally.
So my name is Patricia Hookman, and I'm the global lead for the Possibilities BRG. My primary job at Thermo Fisher is in the company's senior intellectual property litigation paralegal. And what that means is Thermo Fisher has thousands and thousands of patents. We have a lot of trade secrets and copyrights, and I spend more than 80% of my time defending and promoting the company's intellectual property anywhere globally in the world where it needs to be asserted or defended. So that's what I do aside from my work as the global lead for Possibilities. Our Possibilities resource group is aligned with disability advocacy. It's open to any colleague in the company, regardless of whether or not they identify as disabled. Our purpose is to promote awareness of people with differing abilities and to create a community of support for them and their families. And as I said, it's open to anyone in the company, regardless of your identification as being disabled. If you really just want to learn more about disability advocacy, find resources, or just belong to a community of support within the company.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Robinson. Again, thank you, Carl, for the opportunity to be here. For my day job, as a quality assurance auditor, what we normally do is we're just reviewing the data, making sure that the non-clinical and clinical data is up to par. We have to make sure that documentation is filled out correctly, that there's some type of justification, that the story all makes sense. And of course, we want to make sure that the data is good data and that we're not just putting anything out there to our clients. And that could go anywhere as clinical auditing, stat reports, method validations, things like that. As part of my BRG, as Carl mentioned earlier, I am the co-lead for African Heritage. And what we are looking to do, we're always looking to create an environment as far as advancing African Americans and their careers and their personal and professional development. And a lot of times we're doing that through facilitated conversations like our safe spaces. We have provide an opportunity for not just members of our BRG, but allies to come by and to have conversations with anything, whether it could be some incidents like the Buffalo incidents, or as far as, how was your day? things like that. We do a lot of professional development series, lunch and learn series, virtual homecoming. Matter of fact, today we have a DJ for our Juneteenth presentation that's happening a little bit later. So that's a lot of the things that we'd like to do. Just it is virtual, a hybrid, but we're also doing some things that are face to face, and looking to always grow and make sure our members are succeeding and getting the resources they need.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. But let's get right into it then. So before we get into the specifics of Thermo Fisher, can you tell me what is an ERG?
Yeah, so an ERG, or Employee Resource Group, is an employee-led group of colleagues who come together, create a community, create connections among each other to foster diversity and drive inclusion within the workplace. And oftentimes that also translates to our work externally, which I know a lot of your guests talk about on your show as well. So for us, we have 9 global business resource groups, and we call them business resource groups because as groups mature within their D&I journeys, that they start out, you may hear some companies call them affinity networks, some of them call them employee resource groups. In that beginning stages, colleagues are really coming together around a shared affinity, right? To what you heard from all my colleagues earlier is about finding that connection, creating that sense of belonging with each other. But as the groups mature, they start to get really aligned to our business. And, we are 10 years into our resource group journey at Thermo Fisher. So all of our groups are now transitioned to business resource groups because they are aligned to what we do around diversity and inclusion, whether it's supporting our colleagues, bringing colleagues in, diverse colleagues in, supporting them, developing them, or supporting what we do in the community, looking at how we really educate also colleagues who are not part of that affinity, and creating allyship. So that's a long way of saying employee resource groups or business resource groups are networks of employees who come together around a shared affinity to try to foster diversity and drive inclusion.
So for Thermo Fisher then, what is the purpose of your resource group and what affinity do your members share?
I'll start with that. Thank you, Carl. As I mentioned a little bit briefly, the purpose of the Possibilities Business Resource Group really is to promote awareness of an understanding of employees who have differing abilities, and also to create a community of support for them and their families. And the ways that we do that are by aligning ourselves with the pillars for our global diversity and inclusion. We really strive to foster a sense of belonging for our colleagues that are part of our resource group. We also want to drive impact and positive impact for the community. We support our talent and try to help by developing talent within the company, also by helping to do targeted recruiting externally for disabled potential colleagues. And then one of the biggest things that we do is try to provide resources, education, and promote allyship through our group.
Yeah, I can take it next. At least for our group, for African Heritage, a little bit of history behind it. We were started just in 2020, and it happened maybe a couple weeks after the George Floyd incident. There was a message that came out just from some leadership, and a couple members of PPD just felt that the message could have been a little bit stronger, a little bit more detailed, and they had those conversations with those leaders. And from there, it was called BOLD at the time, and then as we were acquired by Thermo Fisher, excuse me, it became African Heritage. And a lot of the events that we still put on, like I mentioned earlier, we're still doing to this day. But we are looking, like Patricia said, we're looking to always drive impact. We're always looking to reach out to our members, make sure that they're that they're providing input into some of the activities that we're looking to do. And as far as just the growth of our BRGs, it's been organic. I mean, a lot of people have been reaching out, and the more I've realized, the more events that we do, the more people that are coming out to find out more about what we do and kind of who's involved in the board. And Ever since we joined with Thermo Fisher, we've had a lot of connections and a lot of people finding out more and more about what we do and kind of being aligned with Thermo Fisher.
And for the Women's Empowerment BRG, we're actually one of the oldest ERGs or BRGs at Thermo Fisher Scientific, recently celebrating 10 years. Our role really is committed, we're committed to making Thermo Fisher Scientific one of the world's most admired companies, purely because we are here fostering the advancement of women. We want to build that corporate culture where we recruit women employees, we value women employees, we develop and retain them, we empower them, and we promote them. I think one of the biggest challenges as women is really speaking up for yourself. And so what we try to do and what we're doing now going forward is really building that allyship, helping others speak up for women, really making sure that we're promoting each other. And making sure whether it's an advocate who is male or who doesn't identify as being woman, they can stand up and speak for us as well. So as well as attracting new women into the company, we also want to retain the women we have and enable them to grow in their careers, whether that be up a leadership career path and advancing their careers, or just feeling really comfortable in the role that they have within the organization and just give them those development opportunities. So again, we're here doing things virtually, on site if we can, and really just enabling a safe space for women to come together, to connect with each other and to find those mentors and coaches, and most importantly, those allies for them.
Just a quick follow-up here. If, let's say, a group of employees wanted to start up a new BRG in Thermo Fisher, is there like a process that happens, or is it just them gathering and, starting it?
Yeah, every company is a little different, but probably at the core of it, it's really about the colleagues, right? So groups of employees will come together and say, hey, I am looking to find people who are like me. Call it XYZ affinity, right? Whether it's their race, ethnicity, gender, all of that. And they'll usually come together and approach your DE&I team and say, hey, we want to form a group. These groups are sanctioned by the company. They're funded by the company as well. So what we do then is vet them and think through, okay, what is the purpose the group is trying to achieve? And how would a group help them get to those particular goals? They also have to do the legwork of finding an executive sponsor, right? All of my colleagues on this call know getting support from the top is extremely important in terms of getting our goals met and clearing barriers to the work that we want to do. So again, starts with employees wanting to come together. Then they come to DE&I and talk about what it is that they're trying to achieve. And if we have the right support, we usually form the group and let them take off, because that's where really the success and the magic happens for our workplace.
So I'm curious to know, how did you all get prompted to join and really, or get involved, and what prompted you to actually join your BRGs?
I'll go ahead and start with that. I have been with Thermo Fisher for 11 and a half years, and my role in IP litigation is incredibly busy all the time. But being based out of the Carlsbad campus, we have 3 different buildings. At one point, we had 5 different buildings spread out across the area. And I noticed that the Carlsbad campus, there were some opportunities to improve the disabled experience there physically on campus. And so in 2019, I became aware of the possibilities employee resource group at that time. And so I reached out to the global leadership and mentioned some of the ideas that I had about how Carlsbad could align more closely with providing a better experience for disabled colleagues. And the leadership said, well, that's great. Why don't you start a chapter? And I said, no, thanks. I'm way too busy to start a chapter. And then I thought about it, and I realized that if there was going to be impactful change within the company, and that the company was going to empower me to move the needle on that change, then I really had a responsibility to start that chapter. And so I did start the chapter in Carlsbad in the end of 2019. And then we really started taking off in 2020. And I was just amazed at how many people really felt connected to our chapter and our resource group because they told me that they felt seen and represented for the first time at the company, and that to see company leadership really participate. Our Carlsbad site leader is the executive sponsor for the Carlsbad chapter, and it really was very moving for me. And so that's how I got started with Possibilities, and how I stayed, with it throughout the pandemic, and then transitioned into the global role in 2022.
How I got involved with African heritage at the time, like I mentioned earlier, we were having an intersectionality presentation. So it really starts with that. A couple years ago, another auditor on my team, we did a intersectionality presentation for the month of February. It was for Pride, but it's also Black History Month at the time too. So we did it for Pride, and it was for the Richmond site only. I was only hybrid. I think it was like right around the time when we were going COVID, working from home and things like that. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, it was well attended at the time, maybe 50, 60 people. But Kat Barrick, senior talent acquisition for CRG, she reached out to myself and Michelle and said, "Hey, I heard about your presentation, thought it was really well. Do you want to do something globally for PPD?" For me, I take opportunities like that all the time. So I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and let's do it. And it worked out for us. We had maybe 150, 200 people maybe on that call. A lot of BOLD members were on the call at the time as well, BOLD board members, and African Heritage, excuse me. And I reached out to them and said, "Hey, I know I just did this as representative for y'all. I was a part of the events committee, but nothing really took place. Is there anything that I can do to get involved or to lead that committee?" And they said, "Well, actually, your name's being thrown around as a board member. So we're just going to jump you over the committee and just get you right into the board." And then from there, I was just in the meetings, kind of sat around a little bit, just wanted to observe, see kind of how they operate. And then I started speaking up a little bit, started talking, and boom, opportunity came available for to be a chapter co-lead. And I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to just always jump to the occasion. And then finally, one of my mentors in BOLD, African Heritage, and said, "You should do it. I think it's all yours." And from there, I just jumped up and did it and replaced somebody else for my old board position. And I've been there for a couple of months now.
So my story is a little bit different. About 5 years ago, the company that I was working for was purchased by Thermo Fisher Scientific. And I had the choice at the time to either leave the ship or join this amazing organization. And so I wanted to find a way to network and to learn about my new peers, my new colleagues, people who now I could actually call up and ask for advice. And as I started talking with some of the new employees who were moved here to Hillsborough, they mentioned the ERGs or the BRGs, and in particular the women's. And so I spoke with HR, and soon enough, I was also given that task of starting up a chapter here in Hillsborough. And it has been an amazing way to learn about the culture of Thermo Fisher Scientific, really enable me to quickly embrace that culture, which was a little bit different than the smaller company that I had been part of. And it's just been an amazing opportunity for me to develop as well, but also connect with people that I would never have connected with in my day job. People even here on this call during my day jobs, we don't overlap, but it's amazing the friendships, the guidance, the coaching, the mentorship that I've been able to find over the last 5 years of being involved with the Women's BRG.
I think each one of us has talked about how we came into the company, and having been part of broader Thermo for so long, I was part of Life Technologies originally. It was acquired by Thermo Fisher in 2014. And I've really seen an evolution of Thermo Fisher's corporate culture. And Lee mentioned when they were acquired, she had the choice to stay or maybe transition to a different organization. And I really have been thinking about the same thing probably in the last 4 or 5 years as Lee, and seeing Thermo Fisher really embrace evolving their corporate culture and developing their employee resource groups and really committing to diversity and being more inclusive really prompted me to stay at Thermo Fisher, actually, and to turn down other offers and really see where Thermo Fisher is completely committed to achieving their goal of being one of the world's most admired companies, but recognizing through their diversity and inclusion efforts through the ERGs and other initiatives that that admiration comes from within, not just from without. And that really has prompted me to admire Thermo Fisher's journey and to really want to be a part of it more and stay with the company.
Though that sounds amazing in terms of the, and how you got involved and the openness of Thermo Fisher for all employees. So what are some of the benefits that you've got out of your BRGs?
Yeah, I'll say for me, a lot of opportunities as far as, like I mentioned, getting a mentor, having someone in executive or higher up levels, having those people vouch for me and the work that I can do has worked wonders so far. Not saying that I haven't, that my own team doesn't do that, because they do. But like Lee mentioned, you come across people that you don't interact with during your daily jobs, and so then having those people to vouch for you has been wonderful. I think it's also helped me as far as my visibility. I'm we're doing this podcast. I mentioned I've been able to present. I've been on the welcome video for PPD. So when people on board for specific for CRG at the time, my face would pop up. I've been able to lead a professional development series with Mr. Chris Fickery at the time, who was working here. So for me to be a QA level 1, interviewing the number 2 person of our opportunity, of our organization at the time, for me it was life-changing. Got to ask him questions, and then I could also put that on my resume, and like I mentioned, just get visibility. So those are just some of the things that I've been able to do since then. So I'm definitely thankful for the BRG and the opportunities.
I mentioned a little bit about, the benefits, the networks and everything, but one of the other huge gains that I've seen as being part of a BRG is not only having that network to work with, but really having the opportunity to test out and explore some different things that you might do in your day job, but not actually go and do it in your day job and risk changing or working for it or having it impact your merit increase or your performance. But as part of the BRG, you can get involved, you can be leading it, you can actually just be a participant, and you can be organizing events, you can be tracking metrics, getting involved with finances, all kinds of things that maybe you are interested in, but you're not quite sure if you really love it enough to give up your day job for. But I think I've seen a lot of people as well, not only myself, but really step outside, take a risk, and enjoy it, and discover that actually being outside of your comfort zone is actually a lot of fun sometimes. And there's a lot of self-reward and self-satisfaction afterwards when you sit back and reflect as to what you've achieved being part of the BRGs.
I agree both with Kevin and Lee. Those are amazing reasons, and I've experienced some of that myself as well. Personally, being able to participate in the BRG has given me an opportunity to really develop my leadership skills in a way that wasn't available through my primary job at Thermo Fisher in IP litigation. It's allowed me to grow and create a diverse leadership team across a lot of different interests, across a lot of different levels within the company, a lot of different geographies, to be able to connect with colleagues globally and to really find ways that I can improve my abilities as a mentor, and to find mentees as Kevin, or to find a mentor for myself as Kevin has mentioned, and really be able to expand and increase my role at Thermo Fisher, because being with the company for 11 and a half years, doing the same thing day after day. My work in my primary job can be very exciting sometimes, but this really just added the depth to my experience at Thermo Fisher that really makes it rewarding for me in a different way to continue on this path with the company. One of the things I really love is that Thermo Fisher as an organization builds colleagues and culture into its company goal tree. And being able to see how my work aligns directly with the company goals and supporting that really is very empowering to be able to tell people who are interested in coming into the BRG that what they are doing and what they want to do is supported by the company. And I think that's really very rewarding.
Now, you've all mentioned about relationships that you've built through your BRGs, and that resource groups provide a lot of opportunities to network and connect. So can you tell me a little bit more about the relationships you've formed in your when you've gotten involved?
Myself, being in the Carlsbad area, our Carlsbad campus is very, very energetically involved in all of the resource groups. We're one of the campuses within the company that has a chapter for every one of our resource groups. And being able to sit on that community leadership board when I was the chapter lead in Carlsbad was really fantastic. It allowed me to build relationships across all of the different resource groups on campus, to develop relationships with the Carlsbad site leadership team, and really feel empowered to connect with people outside of my role. With a company as large as Thermo Fisher, you can feel very siloed sometimes if you just are doing your primary job and you're in there working every day and you have your head down. But being part of the resource groups has given me chances to connect with not just people who share the same affinity, but to really reach outside of those boundaries and understand different affinities. And I think those relationships are equally important for me to be able to see that, to develop my perspective and understanding for other people.
As far as relationships, I think, it's been fascinating. I've had the opportunity to develop relationships across the entire organization. As a chapter lead, or as now the global lead, a lot of people reach out to me, and they can be some of our entry level staff, some of our staff who may have been here for many years, and they've come to me with questions and with challenges that they're facing, and we talk it out, and we find a way for them to sort of either resolve it or to find the right person to speak to, because they're not really sure maybe who to go to. So I found that extremely rewarding, but I've also had the opportunity to also speak and connect with some of our key executives within the organization and really learn from them and understand how they balance their day, how they get involved, how they prioritize, how they even do simple things like work with their executives on their Outlook calendar schedule. Just to little tips and tricks that they've managed to get into their daily life in order for them to be so successful. Obviously, they're also fantastic sounding boards as we sort of bring ideas to them. And they bring back and reflect on what the company wants to be doing and what that longer term vision is for us as well. So I think I've really just enjoyed just the variety of employees and colleagues that I've had the opportunity to connect with in this role and as part of the BRGs.
Yeah, just like what Patricia and Lee were saying, I meet a lot of relationships. The board right now we're virtual, so it's a lot of people in different areas. I'm located in Virginia. Some people on our board located in Maryland, North Carolina. So we're spread out through there. But just being involved in the BRG has also opened up opportunities as far as the different businesses that were acquired. Throughout, I got to PPD about 3 years ago. And knowing that now that I'm a part of the African heritage and hearing how everyone else got here, it's like, oh, okay, it was similar. Someone's company might have been acquired by someone else's. So this is a person you could reach out to, or there's, different organizations within PPD that was acquired. So just having those people that you can just reach out to, like Lee was saying, is good. I can just reach out to someone like, oh, you're interested in doing this? Let me patch you through with Lee. She can help you with here. Or you want to do this? Let me put you in with Carl. He can help you with that. So things like that, people have been able to do that for me now that I'm kind of well connected and made myself not just a QA auditor, but kind of like indispensable with PPD and CRG and Thermo Fisher. It's my career is kind of just taken off from there. And I kind of no longer look at people based on their titles. I kind of talk to people, and then and so far it's worked out. If I just don't look at the titles and I just talk to you, then it's been good.
Well, let's actually talk about your membership here, and what were some of the activities or successes that have resonated with them?
I mentioned that when I started the Carlsbad chapter, it was really toward the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So we really started growing during the pandemic. Our first big event was January of 2020, and we had done a neurodiversity learning session in Carlsbad. It was live, and we had a full house. There were, close to 100 people. We had 4 panelists that were in leadership in the Carlsbad campus, an external speaker. And I remember people coming and talking to me later and saying that they felt represented, that they saw leaders on the stage that were open and talking about their mental health, talking about being neurodivergent themselves or having a family member, and that they really felt empowered. And that just, when I think about the successes for possibilities, to me, the success is that our colleagues feel that they belong at Thermo Fisher, that they feel that this is a place where they can be authentic and they don't have to hide who they are, and they can be fully themselves here. And the things that we try to do to create that sense is, finding ways to amplify representation across the wide variety of different types of disabilities, and just allow people the safe space to share their stories and to feel connected to one another. And I think those are really the biggest benefits from possibilities. Is we provide resources, and out of our 2 purposes, promoting awareness and then creating a community of support. I think the community of support really has been critical during the pandemic. So much of what we've done is try to just help all of us across the company stay connected, not feel like we were just on our own working in our homes. And it's been very important.
For the Women's BRG, we've certainly seen a lot of events, and obviously over the years, the in-person events everybody appreciates. But I think, over the last couple of years, everybody's had to step up and sort of accept that the virtual world is the space that we can still connect with. But it's ways of finding ways within that to make sure that we're actually more than just 200 people or 1,000 people in a room. And it's technology that's really helped us stay connected, and things where we've used breakout sessions in some of our virtual events have, I think, allowed us to stay closer to connected. And one of those is the hashtag I am remarkable. It's a platform that we've used amongst multiple chapters. We've done it regionally, and we're looking now to expand it across the globe. But it's a space where women come together, or anybody comes together and just shares their story and speaks up and says, why am I remarkable? What have I done today that I should be proud of? And as I mentioned before, that's really something as women we're trying to continue to emphasize and to help them promote themselves. And a recent event that we did had so many people in it that those breakout rooms were hectic and crazy, but everybody was engaged and involved and just really loved it. And I don't think we can, stop right now. We've got to keep doing more of them and just get more people together. As far as our events, though, it's about bringing people together everybody loves free food. Everybody loves a freebie pen. And so that really entices people, but it's the discussions over the lunches. It's the discussions over the cup of tea or the coffee, or whatever beverage somebody drinks. And I think we've seen those starting to come back now at our sites as more and more people have those drop-in sessions. We've seen a lot of executives hosting drop-in sessions. And I think, again, our BRG members are really enjoying those, because it's a time just to connect with them as humans, right? Understand them, have that little coffee chat with them. So, yeah.
For African heritage, like I mentioned, the 3 things we're focusing on are always personal, professional, and career development. And we do that through a lot of events. I don't know why I'm clearing my throat so much today, but majority of the events that we have are, right now they're kind of social, whether that's virtual or hybrid, or if it's online. Our biggest well-attended ones, I'll probably say, would be the virtual homecoming. I mean, in the African-American community, at least HBCUs, historically Black colleges and university, their big events are homecoming. People coming back to the campus, tailgating, watching them play their rival schools. The music is always a good time for campus, and some people like to revisit those. And because of COVID, some people didn't have the opportunity to visit. So we had the virtual homecoming. So had the DJ doing a lot of those things that they do on their homecomings virtually, or trying to replicate those. Juneteenth is well attended as well. We usually have a slate of events. This year we're doing having a therapist, just because of the recent events that happened in May. With Buffalo and the schools near San Antonio, things like that. We've also done safe spaces. As I mentioned, that's every third Thursday of the month. Usually that's 40 to 50 people attending. And so far, each time I've hosted a room, we've had, people say, hey, it's my first time being here. I kind of heard from so-and-so. They told me to come out. And, that means that what we're doing is working, because people are spreading it word of mouth. And then the last events would be our professional development series. We've done 2 or 3 of them. The first was maybe 200, 300 people. The last one with Mr. Chris Vickery was about 500 to 600 people. And so each time, we've seen that growth. We've seen a switch up in the format. One was a lecture based. The other was kind of like a moderation. I think the next one is going to be like a panel discussion. So we're always looking to involve and always grow from there. And then finally, marketing. Of course, we want to be branded. So we do have shirts and we do have cups, and always looking to go from there.
So what are some of the current initiatives that your BRGs are involved in today?
Well, Possibilities BRG is really focusing on some very strategic goals this year. We want to launch some targeted recruiting initiatives around recruiting disabled colleagues. I think that's one of the things that we've identified as an area that we can help Thermo Fisher improve their diversity and to drive that inclusion that we talked about. So we're collaborating with the Veterans BRG, looking at disabled veteran hiring initiatives and hiring fairs with the VA. We're also working with NIMI and Global DE&I on a neurodiversity hiring initiative across one of our business groups. So we're very excited about that. And just generally overall, one of our goals is to improve the disabled colleague experience. And so we're doing that through some special interest programs that we have within our global BRG, supporting mental health, supporting neurodivergent colleagues in the workplace, supporting caregivers, looking at digital accessibility, and then really trying to say, what is one other big thing that we can do to improve the colleague experience? And that is working on getting a manager training module vetted and rolled out on helping managers understand the fundamentals of disability and learning how do you support your direct reports who are disabled, and how are you more inclusive, and removing the barriers to that inclusion through the manager training.
Right now, the Lunch and Learn is one. It's kind of separate from the professional development series, more hands-on base for our members to attend. One would be like a CV resume, extreme resume makeover type thing, where you bring your CV, you bring your resume, you have a couple people from with CV experience in HR talent acquisition coming by to actually go through what makes your CV stand out and things like that. Recruitment and talent acquisition, getting people on the board that are involved in it. I'm a PPD ambassador, so there's a couple of other people, or I should say, excuse me, I keep saying PPD and CRG, but we're ambassadors. We have a HBCU hiring initiative that we're looking to start, different pipelines. And then the biggest thing within our group is as far as metrics. I know we talked about impact, but are we really making an impact? Can we measure that? What does that look like? And then how can we improve?
And if I can just add quickly for the women's BRG, one of our big focuses is really focusing on scientists, engineers, women who primarily have struggled in those arenas. And so again, working with not only recruitment and some of the national organizations around the world where we can work together with those associations, but also making sure the women that are within the company already in those positions, creating an awareness to the challenges that they have in the workplace, in their roles that they have. Spending many hours studying and doing the research is taxing on, maybe a woman who has a family and needs to leave and pick up her child. Engineers are often in an environment which is extremely challenging for them as a woman. Maybe they're not as physically capable as a male or their male counterpart. So again, just looking for ways to make sure that we can grow our diverse team within the scientists and engineers we have at the company.
What I wanted to follow up on with all three of you was, how do you decide which, initiatives you want to, go forward with, whether it's prioritizing a couple or is it just focus on one for the year? Because obviously throughout a year, there's a lot of different, world events or things that come up in the organization, or things that come up in the community that, maybe your BRG is focused on one, but then you may want to focus on others. So how do you prioritize that?
So a lot of our prioritization comes from working closely with our DE&I team and with our company goal tree, right? At the end of the day, what we're doing is really working towards developing and growing our business. And so if we're recruiting individuals, it's because we want them to continue to be great scientists, doing more research, helping us, enable our customers, as our mission states, to be, make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. And so we want more women on board. We want more women or maybe individuals with disabilities. Just again, recruiting that diverse audience, recruiting that diverse colleague base to enable us to have ideas that again can push really what this company can do. And so as we're working on and developing our initiatives, we look back at those and reflect on those. And Mimi spends a lot of time with us working through them. And we work with our executive sponsors to really flush out 2 or 3 key initiatives that we can work on. Because again, there is so much we could be doing, but we only have a small amount of time, and we really want to have an impact. We want to make a change.
I agree with Lee completely. Definitely working with global diversity and inclusion, working with our executive sponsors, and finding where are the areas that you can drive that impactful change and really see that you've moved the needle in a year, because there are so many different things. One of the ways that I try to address that in the possibilities BRG is working closely with my chapter leaders and build that sense of cohesion where we all know what the global strategic goals are and how do I work with them to advance their specific chapter goals? Because each chapter, each location in our company has an identity, and different chapters and different locations want to amplify their message. And so, we have strategic goals on a global level, and then the chapters have their own specific site goals. And so we try to make sure that they are in harmony together. And that's one of the things I think is part of my role as a global lead, is to create that cohesion. And I like a lot of times to express to our chapters, communicate with your members. Ask your members what is important to them, because I don't ever want to have our members feel like we are talking to them or at them and telling them what Thermo Fisher thinks is important. We want to be able, as colleagues, to have a voice, to have a platform. And so we try to provide that opportunity and ask our members, what do you want us to do to support you? Do you want more mental health support? Do you want more neurodiversity support in the workplace? Are you interested in benefits resources? So we do a lot of surveys. We ask people when they're in our events, and then we take a look at that, metrics, as Kevin said, finding out, are we making an impact? And then being able to look at those responses we get from people and then use those to inform our decisions on what our initiative should be going forward.
Yeah, our process is pretty similar, just like Patricia and Lee saying. For us, we normally just plan. We have some type of meeting in the beginning, or we might try to get down some things. Okay, we want to do 3 professional development series. We know we having safe spaces, and we know we're trying to do whatever else we're trying to do in there. And then we, of course, we meet with the board. Board's meeting consistently. And then we're always meeting as chapter co-leads, me, myself, my other chapter co-lead, Lisa, and then our 2 executive sponsors. Then we might meet. And then, from there, ideas might get flushed out. yeah, this would be a good idea. No, that's not a good idea. We could table this. And then from there, when we actually do, if we do an event, most of the time people either stepping up to the plate, or we have some members that are looking to get involved. So we take that as an opportunity to get them engaged. And then finally at the end, we send out a survey metric, whether it's at the end of the event or at the end of the entire year, just to see how we did and what can we improve, whether we want to improve the events that we just did, or okay, that event didn't work, let's just scrap that all together and do something new.
So diversity, equity, inclusion is there's a very high focus on that. So could you provide some examples of how your BRGs are supporting Thermo Fisher's diversity and inclusion efforts?
Speaking about the groups as a whole, our BRGs are focused around 4 pillars that are very aligned to our DE&I efforts, right? One, you've heard the team talk a lot about this, fostering inclusion and building belonging. This is all about creating safe space as a company that understands in order for our colleagues to bring their best work, contribute, and really succeed at the company, they need to feel safe, right? They need to feel like there are people like them. So this pillar is all about trying to create that space. And I think that has come through in all of our colleagues sharing this, is the BRGs enable them to feel like they belong here and they can do their best work, right? So very, very aligned to our focus around that safety and that sense of self. The second pillar is supporting talent. So what this is the recruiting efforts that I think Kevin talked about, whether it's partnering with our HBCUs, or in a lot of cases, our colleagues are focused on developing their members, right? So how do they present, for example, trainings and workshops, getting them out to, I know Lee and team have gone out to conferences, right, that helped women to really build their skills as they advance in their career. And that aligns perfectly with our mission of really helping these communities that are underrepresented in a lot of cases really move up the ladder. And then the third pillar is this educate, advocate, and encourage allyship. And what this is all about creating a platform for the BRG members to share their experience as a way to elevate those voices and bring allies along. This goes hand in hand with what Patricia was talking about with manager training. So as we advance people through the organization and develop them into leaders, we want them to be the most inclusive leaders, right? So our BRGs help to bring that sense of leadership into it. What does it mean to, work with colleagues of different backgrounds? What does it mean to work with, caregivers? What does it mean to work with, in the case of our Pride group, we just had a tremendous training for managers. What does it mean to work with an employee who's transitioning? So we want to make sure that our colleagues that are coming into leadership, and a lot of those who are in leadership already, understand how to be inclusive leaders. So that's where BRGs really play a big role. And then finally is the impact the community. You asked earlier about how do we prioritize. I think a good example of this is, I'll go back to Lee and team again, with the situation in Afghanistan not too long ago, right? The BRGs could organize a fundraising campaign and try to send funds to help women, at that point, women and children who are impacted by the situation in Afghanistan. Patricia and team would do a lot with our association partners, right, in advancing disability inclusion, talking through what are some of the best practices, that we could not only present in the workplace, but really create a community, a society that is inclusive of people with disability. So I think through the pillars is how all of our BRGs are really aligned to our work. And this is just one cut of it. So all of our BRGs do tremendous work in really advancing DE&I, and it really is through their voices that we are able to get as far as we are.
Yeah, I know we just did a DE&I recruitment. I know, like I mentioned, myself and Shakira and a couple other people on the board are ambassadors. So we just helped out with talent acquisition, where we reached out to different interns all across America, and we were just reaching out to them, just letting them know what we do here in the labs. I know there's been a real big push on here in Virginia, at least getting diversity into the labs. So I believe that's what they've been focusing on, and that's what the recruitment was. The opportunities I've been involved in. We've done a shadow day, we've done a BRG workshop, DE&I BRG type workshops, summer series internships. So a lot of presentations right now. at least for on our end for African heritage.
I think one of the ways that Possibilities has really tried to align with diversity and inclusion at Thermo Fisher, the pillars that Mimi mentioned have been very instrumental for me as the global lead in looking at how do I evolve our business resource group from, being able to amplify the successes that we have and look to the future. And the way that I've done that is look at these pillars of fostering inclusion, supporting talent, impacting the community, educate, and encourage allyship. And I've taken a look at those and said, how do I build a global infrastructure team that is able to support these, to drive our message across each of these pillars and find people that can take their passion for this work of advocacy at Thermo Fisher and give them a way to really connect to the greater company as a whole, to be able to say, I can take my individual passion and it aligns with Thermo Fisher's mission in this way. So these DE&I pillars that are really laid out specifically, I think allow members at the individual member level and the chapter level and the global level to really find a way to connect their passion to the overall company mission. And that to me makes it easier for people to engage and removes that barrier for connection at the global level for Thermo Fisher.
Watch part 2 of our discussion with Thermo Fisher as we explore employee resource groups in the workplace. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next episode.